Behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood's golden era lies a darker, often unspoken reality. Many of Hollywood's most iconic figures battled silently with alcohol addiction. While some managed to keep their careers on track, others saw their lives and careers fall apart due to their drinking. Some even caused scandals by being blatantly drunk on set. So, without further ado, here are the 25 worst alcoholics in Hollywood history. Frank Sinatra. Aside from being one of the most iconic singers of his generation, Frank Sinatra is also pretty well known because of his notorious alcohol addiction. Yep, you heard that right. In fact, sources revealed that he preferred Jack Daniels at any time of the day. But wait, there's more, because he was very specific when it came to the way he wanted his drink to be made. His signature concoction consisted of 4 ice cubes, 2 fingers of Jack, and a splash of water in a classic rocks glass. Rumor has it that he would even drink an entire bottle of Jack Daniels daily, much to the astonishment of his doctor. Sinatra's life was a perpetual spectacle, embodied in the classic films he was part of. However, things took a drastic turn whenever he got drunk, and sources revealed that his temperament could change dramatically, leading to clashes with journalists or other cast members. There was even a time when his ex-wife reportedly hid herself in their room after witnessing him drink gin, which indicated a turn toward aggressiveness. If you're wondering how terrible his booze addiction was, let's just say he and his close friends, along with a few Hollywood elites, have jokingly called themselves the American Olympic Drinking Squad. Sinatra died in 1998 at the age of 82, leaving a legacy that was inextricably linked to his love of booze. He was put to rest with a bottle of Jack Daniels in his casket, a fitting homage to his long-standing affection for the beloved whiskey. Richard Burton. Can you believe that during the height of his drunkenness in the 1970s, Burton consumed 2 to 3 bottles of vodka every day? As a result, he developed a terrible reputation in the golden age of Hollywood for his openly excessive drinking with little regard for public image. In fact, he once shamelessly assured a director that he would refrain from drinking on their project, only to clarify that this meant restricting himself to 1 bottle of vodka per day. Burton even claimed that he considered himself sober after drinking 2 bottles. And we all know it was anything but becoming sober, right? Despite his personal troubles, Burton gave an outstanding performance in the 1966 picture, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? His performance won him an Oscar nomination, but his drinking continued to torment him. This was evident during the making of The Klansman, when he had to film several sequences while seated or lying down, owing to his poor balance. Following the conclusion of filming, Burton bravely checked himself into a lockdown recovery center to tackle his addiction during a turbulent divorce from Elizabeth Taylor. He eventually dedicated himself to sobriety. Nevertheless, the toll of his years of heavy drinking had already taken its toll, and Burton died of liver cirrhosis and renal failure in 1984. Joan Crawford. After marrying the CEO of PepsiCo, Joan Crawford was appointed as the company's official ambassador, leveraging her celebrity status for business advantage. And you'll be surprised at the perks that came with being the ambassador of one of the biggest soda companies back then. Of course, Crawford made sure to take advantage of that. As Pepsi's ambassador, she went on global tours. During these tours, the actress had very specific beverage requests at each stop, which included 2/5 of Stoff, 1/5 of Old Forester bourbon, 1/5 of Scotch, 1/5 of Beefeater gin, 2 bottles of champagne, and naturally, a case of Pepsi. But I think we can all agree that she would barely take a sip from her Pepsi and preferred to indulge in her alcohol of choice. Leonard Nimoy. Nimoy was best known as Mr. Spock, but behind his beloved character, he struggled with alcohol addiction while filming the legendary Star Trek series. Even Nimoy admits that he used alcohol to cope with the difficult and long days on production. On the other side, William Shatner, Nimoy's co-star, remarked that Nimoy used alcohol as a shield against the enormous expectations of fame. What began as one drink grew into a pattern of addiction, driven by his proclivity for addictive behavior. Luckily, Nimoy decided it was time to get treatment and undergo rehabilitation to address his alcoholism, right after the filming for Star Trek was done. However, this was proven a failure. Despite his efforts to conquer this problem, Nimoy eventually succumbed to another habit, smoking, which eventually took his life at the age of 83. His reputation as Mr. Spock lives on, but his personal challenges serve as a sobering reminder of the real hardships that underpin the great characters we adore. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was famous for her beauty and brilliance during the Hollywood Golden Age. Despite her success, she struggled with drinking and opioid addiction for many years. In 1983, she made news as the first celebrity to willingly seek treatment at the Betty Ford Center. Betty Ford, the wife of then U.S. President Gerald Ford, created this rehabilitation institution. It was founded to assist those battling addiction, inspired by Betty Ford's own recovery path. Taylor's brave choice to address her addiction not only represented a watershed moment in her own life, but also had a tremendous influence on countless others who were secretly struggling with similar issues. She helped to destigmatize addiction and shed light on the route to recovery. By publicly admitting her struggles and seeking treatment, Taylor, now free of addiction, acquired a new purpose beyond acting, lobbying for AIDS awareness, prevention, and research. With her newfound platform, she used her celebrity and influence to promote awareness and funds for research and treatment initiatives. In this sense, Elizabeth Taylor's path from addiction to activism represents a journey from darkness to light, encouraging millions of Americans to seek assistance and providing hope to those in need. Cary Grant. Cary Grant, famed for his suave on-screen manner, struggled with alcoholism in the 1950s and sought therapy to conquer it. However, his path to recovery took an unexpected turn when his doctor recommended LSD, a then new medication. Grant found consolation and enlightenment in LSD-induced psychedelic experiences and embraced the wonderful adventures they provided. He even introduced it to some of his friends, including Judy Balaban, the daughter of Paramount's president, who said, "I figured if it was good enough for Cary Grant, it was good enough for me." It is estimated that Grant received approximately 100 sessions of therapy as part of his treatment. Although unusual, this technique changed his view on life and increased his overall satisfaction. Grant lived a peaceful life until his death at the age of 82, creating a legacy that went beyond the silver screen to encompass his personal triumph against addiction. Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed had a fascinating presence in cinema and enthralled viewers with his portrayals of many infamous villains. Aside from that, he was known for his beautiful blue eyes and facial scars, which he obtained after a bar brawl while inebriated. Furthermore, the spectator cannot ignore his great acting talents, which were sadly obscured by his alcoholism. Reed rose to prominence for his roles in the Three Musketeers trilogy, Oliver Twist, Treasure Island, and Gladiator, among 120 other films. Unfortunately, he died after finishing his work on Gladiator as a result of a drinking competition with Royal Navy men at a Malta tavern. Before all this, he was Hollywood's most sought-after actor. Even Ridley Scott personally chose Reed for the legendary part of Proximo in Gladiator, but only on the condition that he abstained from alcohol during filming. However, he got into a fight that would completely change his life. Reed needed 63 stitches for it because of the permanent scar it created. He thought his cinematic career had ended, but it wasn't so. He went out on his own and did what he liked best, being the life of the party. Reed attended a pub one evening before finishing filming his last film, Gladiator, and drank 8 bottles of beer, 3 bottles of rum, and many shots of whiskey. Unfortunately, he suffered a heart attack and died shortly afterward. What's surprising is that when asked to reflect on his exciting life, Reed regularly cited a single regret: not having emptied every pub's beverages and not having slept with every woman in the world. Michael Landon. Michael Landon, well known for his classic roles in Bonanza and Little House on the Prairie, epitomized the wholesome, respected character on television for decades. However, underneath the facade lay a fight with alcohol and pill addiction, casting a pall over his flawless image. While his co-workers were aware of his drinking habits to some level, they were unaware of how much he consumed while on location. Landon would secretly mix whiskey into his coffee and vodka into other beverages, flawlessly integrating his addiction into his everyday routine. Even when filming was completed, he would continue to indulge at the neighborhood pub, drinking as if there was no tomorrow. Melissa Gilbert, who portrayed his on-screen daughter in Little House on the Prairie, reflected on her childhood and said that she was ignorant of Landon's hidden vodka sipping from his coffee mug. She remarked, "I'm sure he's one reason why I almost always picked men who smelled like alcohol." In addition to his alcohol and painkiller addiction, Landon smoked an astonishing 4 packs of unfiltered cigarettes per day, most likely contributing to the onset of pancreatic cancer, which eventually claimed his life at the young age of 54. Dean Martin. Dean Martin was the definition of cool, and his appearance led everyone to assume he was a heavy drinker. He once stated, "I feel sorry for people who don't drink because when they wake up in the morning, that's as good as they're going to feel all day." As a result, much of Martin's onstage character centered on the notion of a cheerful, genial drinker. However, his daughter and close friends have claimed that it was all a performance, with Martin frequently drinking nothing but apple juice from his glass. It turns out that the simple presence of a drink and a smoke raised his reputation to legendary proportions. As a result, men sought to mimic him, while women wanted to be in his presence. Despite his public appearance, Martin was a dedicated parent who was always there for dinner and normally confined himself to 1 beverage each evening with his wife. While his profession was heavily connected with booze, Martin appeared to walk a delicate line between excess and control, knowing when to rein it in. He died in 1995 at the age of 78, leaving behind a legacy of charm and charisma that extended beyond his theatrical character. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton was undoubtedly a contender in the early 1950s. She was a rising B-list actress with links to prominent guys like Bob Hope and her husband, Frank Ottone. She was originally from Minnesota before moving to Hollywood, where she swiftly became one of the most well-known stars of the 1940s and 50s. She even appeared with well-known performers such as James Cagney, Gary Cooper, and Gregory Peck. However, her career suffered a dip, and she became addicted to alcohol. This resulted in the loss of her attractiveness, her livelihood, and several confrontations with the authorities due to public drunkenness. She even began issuing bogus checks and indulging in prostitution. However, Payton's personal life was a mess. She had affairs with practically every male she encountered, as well as violent relationships, stealing, and several encounters with the police. During the 1960s, her drinking worsened, leading to a miserable existence. Her life took a rather drastic turn when she lost custody of her child due to her lifestyle. She was then charged with public intoxication in 1962 after being spotted sleeping at a Sunset Boulevard bus station in a coat and bathing suit. After that, she was once again arrested for disorderly conduct while intoxicated at a boisterous afternoon party. And just like that, she soon began spending numerous hours at bars and pubs. Sadly, she died at the age of 39 from heart and liver illness. John Barrymore. This classical actor, a member of the legendary Barrymore family of performers, was a well-known personality in the early 20th century, often regarded as one of the finest of all time. Interestingly, he rose to prominence for his portrayal of sympathetic individuals struggling with alcoholism. This was despite his own struggles with drinking. Perhaps this is why he excelled in his roles. Although he was most renowned for his outstanding renditions of Shakespearean parts and his riveting portrayal as Mr. Hyde, his difficult background and subsequent years exacerbated his drinking issue. In fact, his second wife found him trying to drink her perfume. Yes, that is how terrible his addiction was. In 1933, he participated in George Cukor's popular comedy picture Dinner at 8. In this film, he portrayed one of his first drunken roles as an alcoholic actor. Unfortunately, his career deteriorated tremendously over the years as a result of his continuous alcohol use. Because of the negative impact on his memory, he was forced to rely on cue cards to finish his roles, which marked the end of his professional career. Sadly, Barrymore died at the age of 60, eventually succumbing to drinking-related diseases. Peter O'Toole. It's hard to believe that someone with as dazzling, brilliant blue eyes as Peter O'Toole could be considered one of Hollywood's most notorious drinkers. In a frank interview with David Letterman, O'Toole ascribed his drinking habits to his generation's cultural standards. which emphasized alcohol intake regardless of everyday commitments. He even claimed that booze helped him perform better on screen. One noteworthy incident concerns the making of Lawrence of Arabia, particularly the scene showing a camel raid. Both O'Toole and his co-star, Omar Sharif, were afraid of camels and chose to remain intoxicated during the performance. This choice often is dubbed liquid courage and speaks to the lengths actors might go to overcome their fears. When asked about it, O'Toole just laughed at it and admitted that he could not remember much about the scene because he was so drunk. Well, at least he didn't forget his lines, right? Robert Shaw. I think we can all agree that Jaws, 1975, was a pretty chaotic production. Why? Well, the cast had to deal with a lot of challenges while filming, which included, but definitely not limited to, aggressive sharks, rough seas, and angry castmates. For instance, Robert Shaw aggravated tensions on set by drinking scotch throughout the long filming sessions, resulting in intense ties with his co-star Richard Dreyfuss. Shaw's constant inebriation was a recurring issue during production, except for one critical sequence in which his character is shown as drunk. That surely was an easy take, right? Anyways, Dreyfuss openly mentioned that he likes to see his co-star sober, emphasizing his dislike for the actor's inebriated state. One time, Dreyfuss revealed he had had enough and took the liberty to dispose of a glass of alcohol from Shaw's hand and literally threw it in the ocean. I think we can all agree that they should have done that since day one. Jan Michael Vincent. Jan Michael Vincent was an icon in Hollywood. He was pretty well known for his striking look and his role in the popular TV series Airwolf. And you won't believe he was once the embodiment of charm in his prime. His career began with an almost fairy tale meeting when he caught the attention of a film scout while serving in the California Army National Guard. This chance catapulted him to quick success, allowing him to work alongside prominent performers such as Robert Conrad, Rock Hudson, Charles Bronson, John Wayne, Burt Reynolds, and Robert Mitchum. However, what was supposed to be a career that kicked off with immense potential ended in tragedy. This was after Vincent's excessive alcohol and drug use led him down a dead end. Everything happened after Vincent achieved one of the biggest milestones in his career by earning a record-breaking paycheck for his part on Airwolf, making him the most paid actor in television history at the time. However, his enormous affluence allowed him to indulge in dangerous addictions, such as cocaine and alcohol. During the second and third seasons of Airwolf, his addictions grew more apparent, causing production delays and financial overruns, ultimately leading to the show's sudden cancellation. It was also reported that he was arrested for drunk driving. Worst, he got involved in a car crash, resulting in injuries such as a broken back and the loss of a leg. But this doesn't end here because there were also records of domestic violence toward his girlfriend. And as time went by, his perfect looks and charming face suffered from premature aging due to substance abuse. Before we move on, if you want to see more Hollywood stories, make sure to subscribe and share in the comment section below what you would like to see in the next video. Errol Flynn. He was the epitome of charm and machismo, and his role as the iconic swashbuckler in films such as Robin Hood and Captain Blood made a lasting impression. Behind the scenes, however, his life was a wild ride of decadence, depravity, and unrelenting adventure. This infamous womanizer took pride in his image as a seductive rogue, a strong warrior, a cocaine fanatic, and a die-hard bottle lover. Flynn found himself not just clinking drinks with Fidel Castro in Cuba, but also at his Malibu bachelor home, which he shared with fellow actor David Niven. If you're wondering how bad his drinking habit was, well, let's just say he earned an interesting nickname. Specifically, people started calling him Cirrhosis by the Sea, due to the sheer volume of alcohol consumed within the walls of his private boat. However, it doesn't stop here. According to sources, Flynn would host crazy parties driven by sex, alcohol, and cocaine. His devotion to the art of excess was so strong that he once strayed onto film sets while inebriated. But all good things must come to an end, and Flynn's pleasure was cut short when he collapsed in an elevator in his early 30s. Following this, a medical practitioner informed him that his heart and lungs had been irreparably damaged. Ultimately, he died due to a heart attack when he was just 50 years old. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart is regarded as the best male actor in the history of American cinema. This was mostly because of his frequent Academy Award nominations and spectacular performances in timeless classics. It's easy to see why Bogart garnered so much respect among Hollywood actors. Yet in his personal life, he was renowned for frequent drinking. Bogart, according to one of his pals, is a pretty pleasant man until around 11:30 p.m. Close friends claim that he morphs into a different version of himself during these times. He may become furious, stubborn, or even harsh and violent. As his great career continued, his drinking began to affect his performance. He frequently came on set inebriated or with a hangover. In one incident, he appeared in his pajamas, refusing to work, and instead riding a bicycle around the Warner Brothers studios. While filming the adventure picture Sahara, he was reputed to hesitate to leave his dressing room until his then-wife, Mayo Method, brought him a thermos filled with martinis. Bogart seldom went long without being very inebriated, even when he wasn't working on a picture. There was also an instance in which he drunkenly fled a restaurant with their safe and abandoned it on Beverly Hills Boulevard. He also ended up in court after punching a couple of women who tried to grab the toy pen that he had taken to an elite club as a drinking buddy. Despite drinking alongside performers like Richard Burton and Frank Sinatra, Bogart regularly got into problems and was finally prohibited from pubs, taverns, and clubs. His lifelong habit of drinking and smoking hurt his health. In 1956, he was diagnosed with cancer and died shortly after. Even in his latter days, he could still be seen enjoying a glass of sherry. William Claude Dukenfield, W.C. Fields. W.C. Fields was a renowned actor and one of America's best comedians. He is most known for his exquisite timing and hilarious grumpiness, and he flawlessly integrated his real-life attitude with his on-screen personas. He is also renowned for his distinctive nasal voice and, of course, for his outgoing personality and fondness for drink. Fields rose to fame in his mid-50s, but his life nearly ended prematurely a few years later. This came after his drinking had reached an extraordinary degree, with stories indicating that he consumed more than 2 quarts of gin every day. This resulted in serious health concerns, including delirium tremens. After barely making it through films like Poppy in 1936 and The Big Broadcast in 1938, Paramount terminated him. Despite his persistent alcoholism, Fields had a significant recuperation phase around that time. He became a regular on the popular radio show Chase and Sanborn Hour in 1937, where he found peace and the relatively easy task of radio broadcasting. This radio popularity allowed him to preserve his celebrity status while his health recovered, finally allowing him to return to cinema. Fields spent the remaining 22 months of his life at the La Encina Sanatorium in Pasadena, California. On Christmas Day 1946, the holiday he claimed to loathe, he had a catastrophic gastrointestinal hemorrhage and died at the age of 66. Bernard Lee. Bernard Lee had a very active career in the performing arts, with a half-century of experience as an actor and over 100 film and television performances to his credit. He began his adventure at the age of 6, dabbling with stage productions before becoming well-known in the film industry. Undoubtedly, his most major success was portraying the role of M, the commander of the British Secret Service, in 11 James Bond films. However, Lee's personal life was marked by tragedy. The tragic death of his loving wife in a home fire, a horrific mugging, and unsolved financial problems drove him into a condition of misery and alcoholism. His addiction was believed to be so serious that during breaks from filming the Edgar Wallace television series, he was confined to his dressing room to avoid drinking alcohol. Despite these measures, Lee allegedly found a method to satisfy his craving by employing someone to send a straw through the keyhole, allowing him to drink surreptitiously. In fact, famed heavy drinker Richard Burton allegedly claimed that he couldn't match Lee's tolerance for alcohol when Lee had outdrank him. Lee died at the age of 73 from stomach cancer, which was most likely caused by his heavy alcohol consumption. Gail Russell. Gail Russell was an actress who never aspired to become famous, but she found herself in the limelight because of her jaw-dropping appearance. As a timid and introverted youngster, she preferred the solitude of her room to socializing. But when a Paramount executive saw her attractiveness, her mother persuaded her to do a screening test. Russell then married actor Guy Madison in 1949, despite reports that she was romantically involved with her co-star, John Wayne. Her marriage to Madison was difficult, resulting in divorce in 1954. Russell's drinking increased around this period, and her film career came to a halt in 1952. Wayne's divorce case aggravated her drinking, resulting in several arrests for drunk driving. She decided to seek help and went to a sanitarium in Seattle for therapy. Russell made a comeback in 1955 following her divorce with a role in 7 Men from Now, produced by John Wayne. She went on to feature in numerous more films, but her struggle with alcohol remained. Things took a dramatic turn when she was discovered dead in her Los Angeles residence. The cause of death was listed as acute and chronic alcoholism. Spencer Tracy, let me first ask you a question. Have you ever imagined seeing the word alcohol being on every page of someone's biography? Well, alcohol had a significant influence in the troubled life of iconic actor Spencer Tracy. That James Curtis has used the word a couple of times throughout his biography. Tracy's fight with alcohol was both damaging and well-known. Doctors' records from a 1942 visit to Johns Hopkins provide insight on Tracy's drinking history, stating that he would begin on alcoholic retreats after finishing a film, which lasted around a week or 10 days every 8 months. Despite understanding the consequences, Tracy couldn't resist the temptation of booze. This is why he would isolate himself in luxurious hotels, skipping engagements and frustrating everyone around him. Tracy's remorse about his drunkenness quickly became a source of misery, fueling his destructive conduct. Even after 5 years of abstinence, he admits to craving martinis anytime he sees them. His buddy, director Joseph Mankiewicz, acknowledged Tracy's shame and the importance of it in his fight with alcoholism. Tracy's struggle was characterized by intense sorrow, humiliation, and self-inflicted scars from his addiction, which left an everlasting impact on his life and profession. Bela Lugosi, the renowned horror performer, has a turbulent and sad story when it comes to alcohol. You can even say it's his personal horror story. In his latter years, he developed morphine addiction as well as a reputation for drinking. His drug and alcohol usage had a negative impact on his mental health, resulting in distressing instances that demonstrated his spiral into darkness. One event on a movie set exemplified Lugosi's problem with alcohol. Director Ed Wood, who had worked with Lugosi on multiple films, saw him lying behind a curtain, gripped by his addiction. Tears poured down the ghost's face as he clutched a revolver, aiming squarely at the director. In that emotional moment, Lugosi said haunting words to Wood, adding, "Eddie, I'm going to die tonight, and I want to take you with me." Without a doubt, it was a terrible representation of Lugosi's misery and desperation. But Wood, who had struggled with alcoholism, knew the depths of Lugosi's anguish. In reality, he knew exactly what Lugosi needed at that time. It was to find peace. Therefore, he got the desired scotch and served Lugosi his favorite drink. Lugosi took a drink of the soothing elixir, the pistol was dropped, and the tension began to ease. Lon Chaney Jr., known for his talent as a character actor. Fans were shocked after knowing that Chaney actually battled with alcoholism and depression. His heavy drinking took a toll on his health, leading to cancer and liver disease. But before he succumbed to his vices, he had a pretty glamorous career, but also a messy one. After filming Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, he attempted suicide. But let's be honest, Chaney's journey was tragic, especially because of his drinking habits, which got him into trouble most of the time. For instance, he got banned from William Randolph Hearst's mansion for trying to get Marion Davies drunk. But people still loved him, and despite accusations of being drunk during a live TV show, some defended his performance as professional. Albert Finney, the talented English actor, recognized for his outstanding performances in films such as Tom Jones, Murder on the Orient Express, and Erin Brockovich, had a distinguished career that left an indelible effect on the world of cinema. However, he was harboring a personal demon. Finney was a big drinker for most of his life, indulging in many pints at lunchtime and beyond. Reflecting on his life, he once acknowledged openly how much he drank, and while he had a good time most of the time, he began to question how he was still able to do so as he grew older. After being diagnosed with kidney cancer in 1984, he bravely decided to give up drinking. Fortunately, he survived the ailment and proceeded to enchant the audience with his incredible performances. He worked until 2012, but Finney died in 2019 at the age of 82, leaving behind a legacy of great performances that served as a reminder of the emotional difficulties he battled throughout his life. Broderick Crawford. Broderick Crawford, well known for his role as Chief Matthews in the television series Highway Patrol, struggled with alcoholism throughout his career. And did you know that participating in the weekly program intensified his difficulty, forcing the cast and crew to discover methods to accommodate his condition? As a result, everyone involved in the production became creative. Some scenes that appeared as if Crawford was casually leaning against a wall are actually shot while he lay on the floor. They even creatively rebuilt the set to provide the illusion of an erect wall when viewed from above. Unfortunately, Crawford's own troubles with alcohol paralleled those of his character. He was arrested multiple times and charged with DUI, which resulted in his driver's license being suspended. Ironically, he became known within the California Highway Patrol, or CHP, as Old 5002, referring to the police radio code indicating intoxicated driving. Even on site, Crawford bribed staff to deliver in booze, generating friction with the show's production company and straining ties with both the CHP. His drinking grew so problematic that the program had to rely on its CHP technical advisor to keep him sober. In the end, alcohol took its toll on Crawford, leaving a lasting impact on his personal and professional life. Gig Young. On the early afternoon of October 19, 1978, the accomplished American actor, recognized for his award-winning performances, unexpectedly passed away. This occurred after Young pointed a handgun at the back of his wife, Kim Schmidt's head, and fired the trigger, killing her instantaneously. Following this awful crime, Young, 64, turned the pistol on himself and took his own life. They had just been married for 3 weeks, marking Kim Young's 5th wife. And by now, I know most of you are asking what could have motivated someone to do such heinous acts. Honestly, no one is sure about the motive, and Young carried the reason to his final resting place. But one thing is certain, he had a difficult life, which most people believe contributed to his actions. Not to mention how Young's career has been hampered by the negative effects of booze and medications. His addiction to Valium, along with high alcohol usage, had a negative impact on his work life. He was even expelled off the set of the comedy picture Blazing Saddles on the first day of filming owing to a collapse induced by substance usage. Just think how horrible he was at his vices at that stage. Despite his personal struggles, Young managed to deliver memorable performances, including his notable role in The Twilight Zone. However, his career was not enough to keep him afloat as he continued to struggle, shrugging off his problem with alcohol. Because of this, he tragically ended his own life with a .38 caliber bullet. While tragic, these stories shall serve as a somber reminder of the devastating impact of substance abuse on individuals and their loved ones.